Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. It was positively an incredible Monday evening in Cleveland. If I would have known how much fun it might have been, I might have gone myself. Don't forget to order the ice cream this week. We've been promoting the Taharka ice cream, the $15.70 off special. I would be remiss if I did not hold up all the leftover flavors here. Luke, I ate all the sweet potato crumble. You can see on the outside of the carton here that there's some leftovers there. I'm going to rinse that off a little later on. Cookie dough, get whatever you need to get. It's all at BaltimorePositive.com. I'm shocked. I think everybody was shocked on Monday night, late into the night, as to how the game unfolded into an instant classic, right? Literally.
It really was. And it's one of those games where, look, we're going to talk about what this means for the Ravens right now, what it means for them 3 weeks from now, what it potentially means in January. But let's take a moment and just acknowledge that in this 2020 that has been so difficult in so many ways, and we've talked about sports as far as whether we'd have them, what they're like, whether we enjoy them, whether it's the same. I mean, we've talked about that over and over and over from the time that things shut down in March all the way until recently with what the Ravens have dealt with and what those games have looked like over the last couple weeks.
I invoked Eddie Feigner, right? Like, literally, that's been my word for, like, is it real or is it fake, right?
Well, it's always been real because these guys have gone through a lot, and many of these individuals have made a lot of sacrifice, but that was magical what we watched on Monday night. And, I joked with you, and we talked about it earlier this year with the Ravens celebrating their 25th season in Baltimore this year. I made my 25 top regular season moments, and I'm not sure exactly where this goes, but it makes the list. And it's probably pretty high on the list when you consider everything. But
it's a top tenner. I mean, we've had a pretty good franchise here.
I've been watching
some of Sandusky's countdowns on BAL, and, I was at every single game. This is the first one I was not at. I was in Denver that day. I've been to all the games. This was one of those ones where I'm sitting there at the end, and when Lamar came out of the locker room and went to the sideline, I Willis Reeded it, and it took Steve Levy until he got back from the commercial to Willis Reed it. But I guess the young kids are Paul Piercing it, I guess, maybe.
Well, there's that, or you do what I did on Twitter, and I put up a GIF of Stone Cold Steve Austin walking down the ramp.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That felt like a pro wrestling. You mentioned Willis Reed, and certainly that's appropriate, but just a wild night, a wild game.
My dad's rolling over in Gardens of Faith, lot number 3 right now, whenever I say Willis Reed. Just so you know how my dad felt about the Bullets in 70. Just so you know.
But, I mean, that's why – but what we saw Monday night is why we enjoy sports, right? I mean, that was not just the game of the year for the Ravens. That was the game of the year in the NFL to this point. And maybe we'll have something better over the final 3 weeks in the regular season, and maybe there'll be something better in January. Maybe there'll be a classic Super Bowl. Who knows? But when you have a game like we witnessed on Monday night, and for Ravens fans, it just works out that much better that the Ravens came out on top somehow, some way, after squandering a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter. You just appreciate that. And I just wanted to acknowledge that a little bit, because as a sports fan, you watch a lot of games that you forget about pretty soon thereafter. And not to say you forget who won or lost, but there was nothing all that terribly memorable about it. And that's most games that you watch. But regardless of what the final outcome ultimately ended up being, that was a game that from about 2/3 of the way into the fourth quarter, you realize that this is one we're not going to forget for a long, long time. And you consider the highs and the lows on both sides of the ball, and your reigning MVP at quarterback leaves the game, and your backup quarterback gets hurt. I mean, there's so much craziness to what happened, and I mean, even the Browns. I mean, as much as we want to make fun of the Browns, and we at a few different points we talked about, okay, they're browning it up here. I mean, they gave everything they possibly had in that, and they have nothing to be ashamed of, despite the fact that they came out on the short end as far as the final result. But just really, really fun theater, really exciting, and for the Ravens. And now this is where we do bring it back to what this means: a very, very important win for their playoff hopes. We talked about it a lot coming into this one, that their playoff hopes were by no means done, but they were in a position where they're going to be watching the scoreboard the rest of the year. And that's assuming they win their final 3 and needing some help. So now they're in a position where, yeah, technically they're still not into the 7th spot, but
better not lose these games.
They win these 3 games, they're going to be in. I mean, you just look at how
and a factor based on Monday night. Monday night, they can go out and score 45 points on you. They can give up 45 points on you, but they can also strip the ball. And they also have a kicker that can kick it 55 in the cold and do an empty, empty end on a windy night in Cleveland. All that, all the above. They have the best player on the field. No disrespect to Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger or Pat Mahomes every time he steps on the field because you can't tackle him. Now, him being healthy as opposed to whatever that was in October, I'm now at the point where I'm sitting doing Cleveland radio and, JT the Bricks asking me, what's really going on with the team and, how's it all going and why is it falling apart? It may have fallen apart because Lamar was not healthy in October before COVID. When he's running the ball twice in a game, the weapon he was on the field on Monday night, I haven't seen him be that kind of a running weapon or them wanting to use him in this way, Roman drawing up the offense for a while, since my birthday. How about that, early October?
Yeah, I don't think it's health. I think it was for that Cincinnati game specifically. I think it's a case of all the different things we've talked about, and you get to the point now where it's crunch time, and look, Lamar Jackson only completing a few passes up until the point that he left the game and then came back at the very end of the 4th quarter. That's not a blueprint that's going to win you a Super Bowl, and we can get into that, and that'll be a big picture type thing, but for Monday night, it was the perfect blueprint because of what they were able to do running the football, and I think this is really a case where I feel like this team's identity has evolved to being somewhere between where they were in 2018 and where they were last year. They're not clearly as efficient throwing the football as they were last year. Not that they threw it 50 times a game last year, but it's clear that that's not their strength, and that's not something that they're going to be able to do consistently. And for as much as Marquise Brown deserves credit for making the play to tie the game, we saw him struggle again. So I'm not sure we're going to see a passing game that looks as polished as it did last year because their personnel is different, their offensive line's different. And yeah, Lamar Jackson hasn't played at that high a level. But going back to the point that you just made, and it's not even that I feel that this is some miraculous transformation for them, but it's a reminder of just how special number 8 is. And this is why I bristle when we do talk about some of his shortcomings as a passer, that we don't go to the point where we dismiss what he does do incredibly well and his ability to rise to the occasion in some of these instances. And hey, he completed the pass on 4th down to tie the game. And then was 4 for 4 on the final drive to set up the 55-yard field goal. So he was able to make some plays in the passing game, but what makes him special? And this is where the Ravens need to, this is where I think they walk that fine line where you can't necessarily expect him to do this every single week. But when you get to December and when you get to a point where you have to win a football game and you know that you're having success running the football, that's when you just take off the training wheels and say, go do it, go be you. And Lamar Jackson did that on Monday night, and it was spectacular to watch, and the Ravens absolutely needed it. Like I said, if they don't win this football game, it's not over, but you're looking at this in terms of, okay, they're going to most likely win their last 3. They need some help. But even if they get in that scenario, what are you really hanging your hat on to say this team's going to make a run? And let's be very clear. Because they won Monday night does not mean that the Ravens are destined to win the Super Bowl. But it is one of those games where it's so improbable how it finished, and everything that transpired, it opens up the possibilities again for you to think about it in those terms. And, in the same way that the 2000 Ravens, when Shannon Sharp catches the pass on the deflection against Denver and scores a touchdown in the wild card round, weird things like that happen. That's when you start to wonder, okay, maybe it is in the cards to make a run. So we'll see. I'll remind everyone, one of the all-time great, fun regular season games for the Ravens was the Minnesota Snow game in 2013. And they followed that with Justin Tucker hitting the 61-yard field goal in Detroit. another all-time kind of Monday Night Football game. And then the Ravens lost 2 games and didn't make the playoffs. So ultimately, we'll see what this means from a big picture standpoint. But I think for Lamar Jackson, this feels like to me that it has the potential to be what Joe Flacco did in 2010 and 2011 in Pittsburgh, leading game-winning drives at the end of the game, where they didn't win a Super Bowl either of those years, but it felt like one of those precursor type moments where you say, wow, there's an X factor here. And that's what it felt like for Lamar Jackson. I mean, as much as the pass was not a real big part of what they were doing at all until he re-entered the game, he made big plays with his arm at the very end. And he just has that. He's got that it factor that looks different than other quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes when you talk about an it factor, but he still has it. And you know it because his teammates sense that. And the number of guys that talked in the post game where they saw number 8 running back onto the field after what happened with Trace McSorley with the injury. And I think it was Chuck Clark said it was a sigh of relief that, hey, our quarterback's back out there. We've got this. And sure enough, they did in the end. So just a remarkable win. And again, a reminder of, even though this has not been an MVP season for Lamar Jackson, a reminder of the types of things he did last year. And it shows you the capability there. And we'll see how these next 3 weeks play out. We'll see how January plays out. Again, nothing's guaranteed, but when you get a win like this, as improbable as that finish was, that's when you open up the mind to the possibilities of, and we've talked about it, 2000, Ravens went through a lot of adversity in that season. 2012, lots of adversity in that season. Well, we know the Ravens have gone through a whole lot over the last 6 weeks or so, considering the injuries and the COVID outbreak. So, does that ultimately prove to be a precursor to a team that makes a run? We'll see.
Luke Jones is here. He is Baltimore Luke, and Luke at WNST.net. We'll have ongoing coverage on the backside of this and getting ready for Jacksonville next week. Yeah, you talk about Lamar, and we're going to sit here and talk about Lamar the whole time. Let's talk about the rest of the offense and what's going on here. Mark Ingram's disappeared. Hollywood Brown can't catch the ball, then does catch the ball. Mark Andrews, not as big a part of what they want to do. J.K. Dobbins, the night that they drafted him, I remember you and I sitting up late saying, oh, well, what are they going to do here? And they have 1 football. Now they have 5 running backs, right, or whatever it is. They felt like the team that we remember from September in what they wanted to do. 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3, run right, run left. Oh, there goes Lamar. Oh, you're not going to spy Lamar? He's going to run to the end zone. They tried to throw the ball, and, Hollywood Brown, I guess this is where I'm going with this, is the cast of characters around Lamar catching the ball, doing things the right way, and maybe you don't have to run out of the locker room at the end.
Yeah, and again, these are things that aren't necessarily fixed just because they won on Monday night, but you mentioned it. I mean, Mark Ingram started the football game. He played 1 snap. You look at the final snap count, he played 1 offensive snap the whole night. So, and we've kind of seen it trending in that direction, but we even saw it last week where Ingram, I believe, touched the ball twice early on before J.K. Dobbins got a touch, and even in the second half touched the ball before J.K. Dobbins did. So I think you saw a clear sign of the changing of the guard there. Not that Dobbins is the guy, because Gus Edwards has plenty to say about that, but you saw those too. 20 carries, 102 yards. Mark Ingram did not carry the ball once. So, in fact, Justice Hill, I believe, played 6 or 7 snaps compared to Ingram playing 1. So you're seeing a little bit of a transition there. And, as much as we focus on the running backs, and you mentioned Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown, how about this offensive line where I think from a pass protection standpoint, you certainly have questions, and they certainly had their issues with that Cleveland front in protection, but they ran block very well. They were able to run block and open up, rushing lanes and really do some nice things at the line of scrimmage in that way. So, I don't even know if it's exactly like what we saw in September, because they had some success throwing the ball in September. So I think it's really just a case of what we said several weeks back, where it was kind of letting go of the reality that things weren't going to come as easy for them as they did last year, as much as you'd like them to. That's the exception, not the norm for even the greatest teams. And I even talked about how Kansas City 2 years ago compared to Kansas City last year, they weren't as great offensively last year as they were in 2018, but
they were
you
January.
you evolve, and if you have special players in the right spots, and you have an MVP at quarterback, not that the Ravens MVP is exactly like the Chiefs MVP, but a special player nonetheless, you've got a shot. And we'll see how this plays out. I mean, but ultimately it comes down to, and we saw this against Dallas last week, and Dallas is Dallas. They're a terrible defense. Cleveland, not a great defense, but better than Dallas. So their ability to average 7.2 yards per carry, I mean, there you go. For better or for worse, that's going to be this team's identity. And do I think it's going to be an identity that's going to get them to the promised land? Probably not if they're not going to get more from their passing game. But living in the moment and just the reality of where you are right now and understanding that the offseason will present a different opportunity. Next year will be a different opportunity. But where they are right now, this is where I said they kind of lean into this profile that's not quite 2018 because Lamar Jackson's more battle tested at this point. I mean, my goodness, they went 14-2 last year. He won MVP. And not last year in the sense that we know it hasn't been as smooth, and I don't expect it to just become that overnight. But maybe you take some of your best elements from the last 2 years and you kind of shape it into what you have now, which, as you mentioned, a rookie running back who's really coming on, Gus Edwards, who continues to be a great complement. First it was Mark Ingram last year, now it's J.K. Dobbins this year, and you do get to the point where you tell Lamar Jackson, go win it with your legs when it's there. Don't feel that you have to pass the ball if it's there. And we even saw it late in the third quarter. I mean, he missed a couple deep shots that quarterbacks have to hit. You have to hit at least one of those. And that was before the Tyus Bowser interception, it looked like that was going to be an opening for Cleveland to get back in the game. So you still see it, and that's not to say that their passing game is where it needs to be, but when you run the ball like this, and then you have a quarterback who can make some plays in crunch time with his arm as well, as we saw on Monday night, then you have something that might be, might play in January, so to speak. So again, you don't want to make too much of it, but certainly it was a big win on Monday night, and I think that was really big for Lamar Jackson. And we talked about this last week, and he acknowledged it over the course of the week, and you heard the ESPN telecast talk about this. Him coming back from having the virus and being down and out for a little while and resting a lot and being tired, and thank goodness nothing really serious for him in terms of the physical physical toll that the virus takes, even on a young, incredibly gifted athlete. But you can tell he kind of has a new lease on life from a football standpoint. He's smiling more. He smiled more in his Zoom call earlier in the week. He just seems more at ease. And that's not to say he wasn't having any fun before, but you could tell the strain of this season, the expectations, the challenges, the injuries, all of that. And it wasn't all on Lamar Jackson, but all of the Ravens have felt that. You go 14-2 and lose in your first playoff game. It's a heck of a burden to carry with you from a football standpoint the next year, because guys like us are saying over and over and over what? Oh, none of this matters until you get to January anyway.
Well, they never really got to get back together and figure it out either, because
right.
The plague came along. Yeah.
Well, sure, but every team's dealing with that, and certainly they've had their challenges unique to them. And you can talk about it in terms of being self-inflicted or what have you, but they went through it. And that's not to say that any of them deserve to go through, no one deserved to get the virus. Again, what it means for these next few weeks, regardless of what happened Monday night, I fully expect them to win these final three. That certainly puts them in a position where they're all but guaranteed to be in the playoffs, and we'll see what their draw is, and we'll see what this offense does over the next few weeks, and we'll see what Lamar Jackson looks like. And we haven't mentioned it too much, but other than just in passing, you even look at the fact that he was dealing with cramping and goes to the locker room, and I know social media had a lot of fun with that and theories of what it was, but this is someone who's coming off of having COVID-19. The fact that he might be cramping up and his body still might not be 100%.
It's a virus.
I don't think that's anything that's that far-fetched. So,
Yeah.
and that's not even to be like overly concerned about it. It's just acknowledging that, hey, you get a respiratory illness, sometimes it's going to take you a few weeks to truly get back to where you were before being sick. So, so from that standpoint, for him to leave the game, for the Ravens to and give Trace McSorley credit, the third down pass to Willie Snead was huge for them. So, he comes back in, like I said, whether it's Willis Reed with your example or Stone Cold Steve Austin walking down the ramp, his theme music hits and everyone goes nuts. Well, the Ravens had their superhero come back out on the field on Monday night, and I mean, it was just one for the ages, regardless of what it means for the rest of 2020. Let's just appreciate that while we're trying to figure out exactly what it's going to mean.
Makes me want to grab a Lamar Weiser from back in the day. Luke Jones is here. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our incredible sponsors through the holidays. If you are buying gifts, by all means, consider our friends at Taharka Brothers and shipping some ice cream at a $15.70 discount. Use that Baltimore Positive code. All of our crab cakes and crab cake sponsors, our friends at Fadley's, are shipping those world-famous crab cakes all over this country, one click away. Our friends at Costas are shipping crab cakes all over this country, one click away as well. And Sporticulture here with great, this Magma lamp's great. They also have a car light that we featured out at Baltimore Positive. You want to check that out, your door light that shows the Raven logo, like the bat signal. It's pretty cool. So make sure you check that out. I think my son's going to gag gift me an old Houston Oiler one before it's all over with. Our friends at Planet Fitness are open and socially distanced. They're there for you at PF, and Teddy Savage will be coming on during the holidays as well, trying to work off all that sweet potato crumble that I've been working up here. Our friends at Rofo are there, real fresh, real fast. I pumped some gas, ran around on a cold night on Monday night to get back in time to watch the magic of Lamar Jackson. We're going to continue to discuss Monday night's very, very memorable win in the land of Cleve. He is Luke. You can find him at Baltimore Luke out on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, all the same places I am. And you can find us together with sports and culture and arts and business and why you need to shop local, all at Baltimore Positive.